So man, we're finally coming up to the trade deadline, man. What do you think the Bulls should do this year, dude?
Bro, it's this team has been fun, but we were hoping Lonzo would come back. It's been a year. He's definitely not coming back.
Right.
He can't even run and walk and jump yet. It's time to sell, man. We got to sell everybody we can get, and we got to get something we can for Alex, for Demar, for Zach. Time to sell.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you do? What do you think we should do then? Like
I don't
what
know. You know what? Sacramento really wants to compete. They're so in
yeah.
on this. They're lighting the beam. They wanted Zach
I
before.
like the Kings. Yeah, I like the Kings. I'm still a
Yeah,
Kings
you're a
fan. That
Kings
works
fan.
out for me. Yeah. So
Bro,
what?
what
So
if they
what?
traded? What if we trade both Zach and DeMar to Sacramento?
Oh, okay. I mean, I can still enjoy them as a Kings fan, but
Yeah.
what would the Bulls get though?
I mean, wait, not only would the Bulls be able to do that, we could probably trade Caruso to like anybody in the league, like even OKC, who's got like unlimited first round picks.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a great trade. Like OKC having Caruso, that makes sense for them long
And they got
term.
so much they got so many assets. We can get
Yeah,
one of those assets.
the Mars from Cali, so he has those ties. Zach,
Yeah.
like you said, like the Kings offered him that extension as a restricted free agent in 2018, and he has California ties, being from UCLA. He
Bingo.
played there, so it all makes
Bingo.
sense.
Yeah, bro. We could trade Zach and DeMar to Sacramento. We could
Okay,
trade Caruso to OKC. What do you think?
dude, I like it, man. Like the like what you can get in return is insane. Like it makes sense for the players
Okay.
involved and the teams
Let, let,
involved.
let me let me I was plugging
Yeah.
this in on the trade machine and
Okay.
I found a couple trades that work. What do you think of this?
Okay.
We do the trade we just said. DeMar, Zach to Sacramento, Caruso to OKC.
Okay.
We get Josh Giddey. It's a good start. Young
Okay.
player. He's got potential. He's got potential.
Sure.
And then we get our pick back from San Antonio that we traded them to get DeMar in the first place.
Okay. I mean, I like that. Like helps us control our future. Like we trying to like rebuild and reset. We don't want that lingering over us. Sure. Yeah.
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 What do you
I like
think?
that so
Zach,
far.
DeMar, Caruso out, Giddey, and our own pick back.
Okay. What else? What else are we getting?
I mean, that's it. I guess Sacramento could give up another first, like a 2031 unprotected pick swap, maybe.
Pig swap, dude. Just that. Like Giddy, our
Well,
own
no, no,
pick
no.
back.
We wouldn't be getting that. That'll go to San Antonio.
What? What? Wait. What? How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the 606. I'm your host, SES Vince, and the homie Basharat. We're back. We're talking more NBA trades because they're coming in. They're coming in for sure. And we have another big one, a three-team trade, and this impacts us a little bit more personally, doesn't it, Bosh?
It does. It impacts us as if you remember, we proposed this exact return because it's so ideal. If you trade Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso, what could you get? How could you jumpstart your rebuild? It turns out, if you're the Chicago Bulls, you can't get jack shit.
Yeah, unfortunately. So let's look into the details of the trade. I have a graphic from the Athletic, but also the tweet from Sham Sharani. So let's look at that. We have De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McCulkin.
McLaughlin,
McCulkin. McCulkin.
McLaughlin.
Gesundheit. They're going to they're going to San Antonio. So now you get the pairing of De'Aaron Fox with Victor Wembanyama, who looks fantastic, by the way. That's a great pickup for them in the short term. I don't know if that's the perfect solution for the San Antonio Spurs at point guard for them in Wemby, but at least they'll be good. Who knows? They might now be able to make a little run at that play-in tournament and get in there, make some noise. The Sacramento Kings got their man. They finally, after what feels like 7+ years, finally received Zach Levine in this three-team trade. They also get City something. I can't pronounce that last name.
City Sissoko, I'm assuming.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Three
I'm not
first
going to
round.
pretend I ever heard of him, so who
No,
knows
no,
if
no.
that's correct.
They also received three
Apologies.
first round picks and 3 second round picks. The
Three in
in theory. So
yeah,
so so
sure.
let's look at that. They get a 2025 Charlotte first round pick, but unfortunately that's lottery protected. The Hornets are going to go into the lottery, and if and when that happens, it's going to convey into 2 second-round picks, but very good second-round picks in 2026 and 2027. They also received the 2027 pick from San Antonio. And I don't believe that it's going to be a high pick as well if you have De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama on your team. Then they also received that 2031 Minnesota first-round pick, which that one could turn out to be pretty valuable depending on how things go with Anthony Edwards and his, disgruntledness in
Not just Anthony Edwards, but like the surrounding team is pretty, with their issues and Gobert and
yes.
their kind of current tax issues. So
Yes, yes. So there's that aspect of it as well. And then the Bulls receive a bunch of guys and their own pick back. They receive Kevin Huerter, who I very much really like. I do value Kevin Huerter as a shooter.
If this was 2023 from when we proposed that trade, it would have been good. But right now he's a shooter who can't shoot. He's shooting about 32% on the year. He hasn't shot well in 2 years since that first year in Sacramento. He started dipping. And he's a shooter. His only skill is to be a shooter, and he can't shoot.
We'll see how it happens. It could be just like a couple down years. He could bounce back. He could not at the current
not bad as a reclamation project, but not an asset. I agree with you. I don't mind getting him as a reclamation project, but that's not a positive.
Exactly. And he's just kind of like a dead contract. He's sold $17 million. He's on the books for 2 more years. Same thing here with Zach Collins, a guy who's just a big that just likes to run essentially for the most part.
And he sucks. I'm sorry. Zach Collins sucks. And he's getting paid almost Vooch money.
Exactly.
If you think Patrick Williams at $18 million a year is a bad contract, wait till you see Kevin Huerter and Zach Collins at the same money.
Oh my God, we just picked up 3 Patrick Williams contracts, didn't we? Yep. And we have them for 2 more years, so maybe next year there'd be a valuable asset in terms of just like salary dump because there would be expiring contracts. The more enticing player out of the 3, and it's not by much, is Tre Jones, who, according to Casey Johnson and other reporters, I can't quote the other ones because I just saw them through Blue Sky. But apparently Tre Jones might be, repositioned somewhere else. He might be shipped off elsewhere, so he might not actually make it.
That would make sense because he's the only good player the Bills got. Again, we got 2 bad players in Huerter and Collins, bad contracts, and the best player in the deal that the Bulls got, is Tre Jones, who is a free agent this year and is a small guard, of which we have too many already.
Exactly. So that kind of makes sense. The big get here is obviously they receive their own pick in 2025. Yes, right now, every Bulls fan in existence is probably saying the same thing to themselves. Well, we were in line to get that pick anyway and retain it in 2025, especially if Philadelphia gets their shit together and actually supersedes us in the standings. We have a 90+% chance of retaining that pick. The reason why it's good to have that pick back, and I'll say this isn't a good return. It's not a good haul for Zach LaVine. I want to quote my good friend TC Fontaine, who you guys have seen on Straight Talk in the past. TC said that we basically got a pack of Black & Mild and a bag of Takis for Zach LaVine, which is about correct.
I think we got that if you first put the ashes from the Black & Mild out in the bag of Takis, that's what we got.
Sounds about right. But that 25 first round pick is valuable because, yes, let's say the Bulls are able to retain that pick this year, right? No issues, cool. The issue comes the following year because in 2026 it's only top 8 protected. In 27 it's top 8 protected. It doesn't. I
can't wait till we get to the point in the podcast where we talk about the Bulls because we're not going to start with them.
No.
I can't wait to tell you why that's actually worse. But yeah.
But then in 2028 is when it eventually just conveys into 2 second-round picks. So when you look at it, at least now that's not looming over the future of your franchise, where if you really are starting to rebuild, you have control over all your picks. And on top of that...
it is looming over the future, Vince, and I will explain why later on.
We'll see. But and the other situation here is that, not saying that they would, but in terms of trading assets, in terms of trading picks, the Stepien rule was applied. So you couldn't, the availability of which picks you could actually trade was in flux depending on that draft situation. So it's a good thing that they got that pick back. I don't believe that they got enough.
You think it's a good thing that the Chicago Bulls can now trade more first round picks?
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that
I think it
frees
was a
up the
good thing when they were
flexibility.
prevented from doing so.
We'll see. However, the trade is what it is. We've had about a day to sit on it, more or less. Zach LaVine is gone. I'm gonna talk about it in terms of what it means for the players involved, in terms of them as persons, as people. Zach LaVine, he finally has this monkey off his back about whether or not he wants to get traded. He was playing fantastically this year. He's playing like an all-star level candidate.
He's
He's
one of the most efficient scorers the NBA has ever seen. A
100.
three-level scorer, especially at volume. He is somebody who is basically, he's like a chucker, like Flip Murray or something, except he can make all those shots, so he's not inefficient. It's
Flip Murray
ridiculous
is
how
it's
efficient
a
he
deep
is.
pull. Flip Murray is a deep pull.
I was thinking of chuckers like derogatorily, and I
Yeah,
didn't want to like slander guys I liked, so I had
yeah,
to pull, yeah,
I
deep in the
understand.
bag.
So then now he gets to be reunited with DeMar DeRozan. Sacramento, I don't know. I guess you didn't watch Chicago Bulls basketball the last 3 or so years and didn't really see the combination of Zach and DeMar DeRozan not really working without Lonzo Ball, unless they're planning to trade for Lonzo Ball too, in which case, cool, they might work because now you have Domantas Sabonis instead of Vucevic, and you have Keegan Murray instead of
You have
Patrick Williams.
Domantas Vucevic instead of Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah,
So yeah, this
yeah.
is
So,
the almost the same player. And Sabonis is better than Vooch,
agreed.
except that he's not as good of a shooter from distance, and he's not as good of a quick passer. He's better setting up the offense and dribble handoffs and that sort of stuff,
Yeah,
but he's not as good as Vooch in like the quick thing that Vooch does, where he catches the ball and instantly like finds cutters and shooters, moves it sometimes with just a touch pass. But
I
he's a better player overall. So
yes,
it's
yes.
kind of whatever.
The dribble handoffs between him and Zach LaVine might be really good.
They're going to
Who
be
knows?
phenomenal, I think.
Who knows? We don't know what Sacramento's going to do, so they might end up moving DeMar anyway. So that might be a Luke point anyway. So why don't we just go into it and talk about each team individually, and we'll start off with San Antonio Spurs because it's the most no brainer out of the two. And let's look at what they actually gave up. They didn't really give up much. If I'm not mistaken, they only gave up Zach Collins, Trey Jones, gave the Bulls back their pick, and they gave up a bunch of other assets for De'Aaron Fox, who I think is a fantastic fit next to Victor Wembanyama. And I'm going to pull up their current depth charts because now you have De'Aaron Fox. They didn't give up Stephon Castle or Devin Vassell, which is crazy to me because I thought you would have to give up
or even
one
Jeremy
of those
Sohan. Yeah.
Or Jeremy Sohan. Who I don't really like Jeremy Sohan, but
yeah, but he's like a young player with potential who's got like defensive ability and kind of versatility. Who
I think
is a potential piece to move. Like
I think
he can get positive value.
I think when he's on the court with Victor Wembanyama, he hinders Wemby
No,
way
but
too much.
it doesn't matter. You can move him for positive value, and you didn't have to give him
they
up.
do.
He's a piece. Yeah.
But yeah, they also have Harrison Barnes and Victor Wembanyama. I don't believe this is going to be their starting lineup. It's just what Bobby Marks had coming off the bench. They still have Chris Paul. They didn't give up Chris Paul. they like, I don't know any of these other guys.
I mean, it's a whole lot of nothing. That's why the Spurs are a fringe, playing team that is barely better than the Bulls right now. Is because they've got Victor and CP and a whole bunch of meh, and then some potential with Castle and Vassell.
I mean, they have some pieces here, like you said, like. I didn't even mention Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan are the two big front court type guys that are coming off the bench. Chris Paul, they got some pieces here if they get into that play-in tournament situation, which I can realistically see them get to there now, especially with De'Aaron Fox being there. It's just crazy to me that De'Aaron Fox chose that this is the team I want to go to. And, kudos to the Kings. They were able to get 2 first-round picks, essentially, and a couple of second-round picks. And they got Zach LaVine, a guy that they wanted. They valued him. Whether he fits in their rotation is to be determined. But right now, the fact that the Spurs were able to get their guy, De'Aaron Fox, without giving up the young guys that they wanted, like Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, even Jeremy Sohan, or even Keldon Johnson, or even giving up the veteran Chris Paul, it's a big win for them. They didn't even have to give up Harrison Barnes in the deal, and I think they really want to
keep that on the screen. Basically, actually can you put the other one up? The one with the trade details.
Yes.
So they got rid of very, very bad contract in Zach Collins. Just a negative contract. He has some value maybe to a team that might have a center, but he's signed for about 18 million a year. He's not even a starter. He's not even a good center, and and he's signed for another year at that price. So they got rid of a bad contract, and then they gave up 2 first-round picks, really. One really good one with the Minnesota 31, I believe it is, or something like that. Yeah, 2031 Minnesota.
Yes.
Yeah, Minnesota pick. And then they have a first-round pick that's from Charlotte. That's this year's. It's not a real first-round pick because it's lottery protected. Charlotte is not making the playoffs. They have virtually no chance of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's 2 second-rounders. However, that's 2 pretty good second-rounders. Charlotte second-rounders next year. That's not bad. Like this year,
look at the second round picks they received as well. I don't know if San Antonio had the Chicago Bulls 25 second round pick or if the Bulls included it. If the Bulls included their own second round pick to trade Zach LaVine, I'm gonna be even more pissed. But that's besides the point. They have Chicago's 2025 first round pick, who it's gonna be a halfway decent second round pick. Like you mentioned, now they have Charlotte's in 26 and 27, who are gonna be good pickups. They have Denver's 28 second round pick, who, depending on how this team goes, could be decent. It could be somewhere in the middle, or it could be a low end. It could be trade fodder as well. But they also received their 2028 second round pick back, so that's good for them if they want to add a dude in the second round that they believe that could help the team and not take up a lot of the salary cap.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna stick with the Spurs, is De'Aaron Fox? He's good.
Yes.
Is he the piece they need for the future? I don't think so. He's an upgrade. I think it's important to upgrade when it costs you relatively few assets. It's not nothing. They gave up some value when we get to the Sacramento portion. We'll talk about it. But they also got rid of a bad freaking contract who was not contributing in Zach Collins. And they got rid of one of the picks they gave up. We'll get to later. But they didn't give up much. They gave up like one real first round pick. That's what they gave up to me. One real first round pick. And a bunch of okay picks that they were likely to move. Maybe
2 if you include the swap rights with the Bulls one, giving back the Bulls their 2025.
We'll get to that one. That's also not a real pick. We'll get to why.
We'll see.
But yeah, so that's not bad. And then they keep their assets. They keep their stuff in the cupboard. San Antonio is a place that generally, even though players have said, and when Wembanyama is like a generational talent, he's changing the league. He's already good, and players have said they want to play with him. But San Antonio has had trouble getting free agents.
Yes.
Usually no one requests a trade to San Antonio because of that. We can count on on one hand the number of times a big time player has considered going to San Antonio.
LaMarcus
Aldridge, Jason Kidd. That's kind of it.
That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, this guy wants to come here. He's youngish and he's a point guard and big upgrade. And, we're not going to give up much. So, okay. Now I think depending on what happens when they pay De'Aaron Fox, that could be an issue, but maybe they'll still be able to move him,
we'll see what happens with De'Aaron Fox. Cause he was up for that extension. My whole situation with De'Aaron Fox and the reason why I'm okay with making this kind of move is because Victor Wembanyama has proved within like a span of less than 2 years that he's a generational talent and you need to build around him quickly.
And you're already on the cusp of the playoffs. It's
exactly
worth it to try to get it.
We saw the depth charts just now. I can pull it back up, but there's no need to. We saw the depth charts and you see what he's able to do and what he's able to produce.
Yeah.
If you're the San Antonio Spurs, you only have a few years of Victor Wembanyama being on that bargain deal contract. Why not add the big contracts now? And then once they're up is when Victor is going to have to get his big extension. So, I mean, you got to fill up that roster spot with that salary cap spot anyways. De'Aaron Fox, I very much enjoy. I think he's great. I think he'll play very well with Victor Wembanyama going forward. And like you were saying,
my only problem with getting De'Aaron Fox, sorry, before I cut you off, but with getting De'Aaron Fox is that he is going to be overpaid soon.
We'll see. His contract is going to be significantly much less compared to what he was going to get with Sacramento. So even if they do pay him, I mean, like you said, you just said that they struggle getting free agents or having guys.
No, that's why I don't hate it. I don't hate it, except that they have enough trade assets that they should be able to get another contract. But it's fine. This trade is fine. It's good for San Antonio.
I think it's solid. I think they're winners for sure in this trade. Let's look into it for Sacramento's point of view. Just to refresh what they received, they got Zach LaVine, City, whatever, and they got 3 first-round picks. We already discussed the first-round picks, and they got the second-round picks. Let's look at the depth chart. And
City
now they,
Sissoko catching strays, man. Poor guy.
like, bro, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They are the team that definitely has to make a trade here because I really don't see them having a true legit point guard. We just talked about the issues of Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan not working out in Chicago because of the inability to help facilitate those moves, get the ball to him. You need it as Alonzo Ball. They have Malik Monk right now projected as being the starting point guard. Malik Monk is not a point guard. If the ball handling duties
The
are
point guard is basically Sabonis and DeRozan and Sabonis, right? Like it was in Chicago.
yes,
DeRozan brings the ball up, and then Sabonis runs offense when DeRozan doesn't isolate.
Listen, going to the reserves, you got Keon Ellis, Devin Carter, Colby Jones, Trey Lyles, Doug McDermott, City Sissoko, Jay Crowder, Alex Len. This is not a team that's going to get you into the playoffs. This is a team that you're going to slowly sink out of the play-in tournaments with. And unless they're moving DeMar DeRozan, unless they're moving the Malik Monk, or they got some sort of trade in the works to get a point guard out there, this team does not make sense to me. Zach LaVine, as you mentioned, he's a very efficient player. However, I argue that he's at best suited being a complimentary all-star level player instead of being the franchise guy. And Sabonis is, again, similar in that regard. I give the keys to the kingdom to Domantas Sabonis, then Zach LaVine, then DeMar DeRozan.
Here's the
However,
problem. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Domantas Sabonis is not that number one guy. He's just not. He's like a third best guy on the championship team at best.
Okay. So to me, it doesn't even matter because the problem with this, Zach LaVine to me is a excellent player. And like you said, destined to be a complimentary star. Well, destined to not be a complimentary star, unfortunately, because he's wound up in situation after situation where he has never been the complimentary player to a ball dominant superstar who drives an efficient offense all on his own. Just never happened. Had he gone to Denver to play with Nikola Jokic, or had he gone to
Golden State,
the pre-trade Dallas Mavericks to surround Luka Doncic, or had he gone to the Oklahoma City Thunder around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you would have seen LaVine unleashed. My hope was to see him in Denver. He would be phenomenal. He'd be a perennial all-star around Jokic.
That's where I wanted him to go. That's where I wanted him to go was Denver. I thought that would have been a fantastic.
Poor Zach LaVine is going to pass 30. He's never going to be able to have realized what he should be. He's going to be the most maligned star just as he's been so far. Because the problem in Sacramento is he's not surrounding that sort of a star. He's surrounding DeMar DeRozan, an isolation mid-range shooter, and Domantas Sabonis, who also is not a three-point shooter. He's not a superstar on the level of Nikola Jokic. He's a very good offensive hub for like a mediocre team. That's it. So LaVine is going to be crowded. He's going to be counted on basically providing the only spacing along with Malik Monk on that team, because Sabonis isn't really going to shoot threes. DeRozan, we know, doesn't. And the ball is going to be, again, pounded into the ISO and thrown to Zach LaVine to bail them out when DeMar's not there from bad spacing and just terrible shots.
I like that it's Sabonis and Zach. I like that matchup, that pairing.
Yeah, the two of them I think will be good together.
Yeah, but it's the simple fact that we're starting things off with DeMar DeRozan as well. I think he puts a monkey wrench into it. And if you're gonna have DeMar and Zach on there, like, again, I'm happy for them.
We've seen this team. It's the Chicago Bulls. Like, this is the same offense. With slightly better.
I'll give it this caveat. Depending on what they do between now and the trade deadline, if you get themselves a serviceable point guard, regardless of who it is, someone that can help facilitate the offense, that team is much better than what the Bulls team was when they were the number one seed in the Eastern Conference going into the playoff.
I don't think they're much better than when they had before Lonzo's injury.
Because here's the thing. You also have to factor in the coach. We have one of the most incompetent coaches in the entire NBA, and
I
I'll
don't
say
think
this.
Donovan is a bad coach.
I think he's
I think he's a bad
horrible.
developmental coach, and he's not
I
a
think
great
he
coach, but I think he's better than Christie, man. I don't think Doug
I
Christie's a
think
good
he's
coach.
horrible. I think he hasn't improved anything of value to any of his teams
He's had
since
a
their
competent
stops.
defense every year out of absolutely garbage defensive rosters. Like garbage. That's not something Sacramento can say. They've had an awful defense no matter what. And by the way, that Bulls team was better because they had Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball. Okay. Now, after Lonzo's injury, the Bulls team we've seen for the last 3 years, like 2.5, everything since Lonzo, Sacramento's better because of Malik Monk, because Sabonis is better than Vucevic. And, that's why Sacramento's better, because Sabonis is better than Vucevic and because of Malik Monk. And that's it. Because otherwise, Caruso and Lonzo in the pre-injury, it's the same team. And that team wasn't like they were first in the East, but they were trending down. Like we're forgetting that they had some concerning signs. They were still going to be good, but they were not a contender, not a real
Like
contender.
I said, going back to my point, like Zach LaVine, sure, like him and Demontis Sabonis, like I don't know what the Kings are gonna do. Maybe look, if I'm the Kings and you've always seen just mediocre basketball and everything's just been doom and gloom, I'd rather just have a competitive team than just keep trying to go through the draft because it's proven time and time again.
That
You
leads
talk,
me to my last point. So when you're done, I'll have one last thing on the
yeah,
Kings. Yeah.
and that's kind of like where it goes. Again, we're the Chicago Bulls. So with our fucking luck, the way that guys just leave the franchise and then just boom elsewhere, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow they, and by they I mean the Sacramento Kings, somehow figure out the DeMar and Zach pairing and it actually fucking works. And just to just like put it in like Bulls fans' faces, because we're so incompetent, we're so like terrible, like, and we're just so unlucky, they're just gonna go over there and they're just gonna make it work, and they're gonna show us how it should have been. But again,
I
like
yeah.
we've seen this show time and time again. Do I have faith in it? Only time will tell. I'm not too high on it. Again, I'm not happy for Zach. I am happy in terms that
This
he's
sucks for
reunited with
Zach
his
the
friend,
most, I think. It
but
sucks.
I would have preferred him going to like even the Golden State
Yeah.
or,
Even the war, even the aging Steph Curry would be a better like piece for
better
Zach to
fit.
play around.
If you were gonna
Yeah.
send him to California, send him there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that would have made more
100%.
sense.
And so I will say, like, the whole NBA has seen this, so we all know what it is. We don't have to debate what it is. I mean, we're going to see. They're fine. They're an okay team. They're fine. They'll have some moments. Zach, DeMar, Sabonis are good. We'll see. But they're not a true player. The thing is, this is sad for the NBA and Zach, because had Zach gone to Denver or a team, one of the other teams, OKC, Orlando, Houston, like anywhere else where he's a better fit, right? Like that would have been good for the NBA. Zach is way underappreciated for what he's good at. And unfortunately, it's going to continue to be the case in Sacramento. We'll never get to see whether we're right, because in Sacramento, he's going to be the same thing and he's going to be shit on because it's not going to work well. The thing with Sacramento is the one thing that saves them here is what you said. They've had such horrendous outlooks every year for so long, and they finally had a competitive team. They're fun. They're lighting the beam. They get to be in playoff conversations, and to go like right back to the lottery like after 2 years of that is kind of a lot to take. And they've already committed to Sabonis. They've already got him an extension. I think Sabonis is up for 2 more years, so they're not going to be able to get like positive value for Sabonis because of what he is and the position he plays and where he is on the aging curve. So to me, it's okay because they have Sabonis for 2 years. They also have DeMar for 2 years. And now Zach has basically got 2 more years on his contract after this if he picks up his option. So what you're saying is Sacramento is, let's run this out. We are already committed to Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan for the next 2 years after this one. We pick up Zach LaVine, and we will continue to be in this play-in and possibly playoff race. Will continue to be fun. We might, mess around and win a first-round series. You don't know. And after 2 years, the slate is clean. We reset the books. After
I
Sabonis,
mean,
DeRozan, and LaVine are all scheduled to come off the books at the same time, that's kind of lines up for a good reset. So that's the one thing that swung me to saying,
that's kind of where I'm at with it.
yeah,
Is like it's the Kings fan in me because I'm also a Kings fan. Yes, I've been a Bulls fan, but I've been a Kings fan since the Chris Webber days. So I've seen terrible teams back and back, and I've seen them try to rebuild through the draft and miss and miss and miss. Don't sit here and talk to me about Marvin Bagley the third. Don't talk to me about Jimmy Fredette. Like, there's been so many times where they could have gotten like that player that could have helped them.
Stauskas?
Nick Stauskas is another
Callback.
name.
That's a callback for those.
That's
so
Nick Stauskas. Jesus fuck.
Sauce Castillo, man. Good old Sauce Castillo.
Sauce Castillo. Then they go ahead and trade Boogie to get Buddy Hield too.
And then they find out Buddy Hield's like 3 years older than than what he was supposed to be.
So as a Kings fan, look, selfishly, as a Bulls fan for the and seeing the team that we've seen the last 3 years, being a Kings fan for as long as I've been as well, supporting the Kings, I liked DeMar and Zach. Whether they're gonna win big, they're not gonna win big. Can they make it somehow work if they get a serviceable point guard? If they get someone that can fit that Caruso and Lonzo role, maybe they can do something here. I don't know. I don't think they.
Yeah, like I said, it's to me because I was very sour on it when I first heard it, and then when I heard about some of the contract details, and I realized like, wait, they're already committed to Sabonis. It swung me to say this is fine. It's fine for the Kings. 2 years of this, guys, have fun, light the beam. You know what? Don't go back into irrelevancy just yet. Be a respectable NBA team for a couple of years before you rebuild. To me, this is sad for Zach and for the NBA, and obviously for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. In a way, it's not the worst thing for the Bulls because now it's over. They ripped the Band-Aid off. Like, it's gonna fucking hurt, but at least now the healing process can begin. Whether it's gonna heal properly or not is to be determined. Now, for the Bulls aspect side of things, yes, they finally get off of the Zach LaVine stuff. We talked that the Zach LaVine era is over. It's done with. We talked about what they received. They received let me pull that up.
They received nothing, and we can discuss the why I think that is, because we're gonna argue a little bit about it, and I think that should lead us into that bottom portion. Chicago receives Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and a 2025 first round pick. Oh, from Chicago. Yeah, yes. Let's talk about that on our next episode. We can keep that one all Bulls.
For sure. And we'll just call the episode here. And like I said, with the Bulls, it's done with. It's over with. We'll unpack it more. We're gonna do what's next for the Bulls. What's next in terms of the trade deadline between now and Thursday. So stay tuned for that. We've got a fun more episodes. We just wanted to make sure we got this De'Aaron. If it wasn't for the De'Aaron Fox portion of things and Zach going to Sacramento, it could have been. It's part of the Bull stuff. But yes, we'll talk about it in the next one. Bosh, where can the people find you?
Find me on Blue Sky at systemlord.bsky.social. Just search my first name, Basharat. It'll pop up that way. If I change my handle, it'll still be there. And otherwise, check out ChiCare, chi-care.org, helping people without homes where they live, with supplies, with food. Check that out. See how you can volunteer, donate, or help us in the warehouse.
Yeah, there you go. As for me, you can follow me on all social media platforms at SES Vince. You can follow the podcast at 606 Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever audio podcasts can be found. Go over to youtube.com/@606. Spell out the first 6 so you don't get the wrong handle. And then the channel should pop up. All the video content will be there. That's where we find this video. Audio is available everywhere else. Once again, we'll catch you guys next time on the 606. Later, y'all.
Peace.